Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. My friend's a strategic factor. If you see Keith Miller, let him know that my beautiful cat Nala has already started to gnaw on the cords here on the new Baltimore Positive swag. It looks great. Big thanks to Keith, but I may need some new shoelaces for my for this. And a shout out to Baltimore Humane Society as well. Before we begin this segment, I can't think of anybody I know who loves Darker Brothers ice cream more than I do. Chris, have you had the sweet potato crumble? I mean, does that sound like something that this would be, up your alley? Sweet potato ice cream with a brown sugar and pecan crumble, almost sort of a Georgia praline, if you will.
It absolutely sounds delicious. That definitely could be on my radar.
Eight of these delivered to your door right in South Baltimore, right down where Al Kaline once struck it at Southern High School. $40.30, 8 of these delivered. You got to use the Baltimore Positive code. We were up late on Monday night. Chris is, full disclosure, not just a Mount St. Joe guy like Don Moeller, but also a Baltimorean and a National Football League insider. But we've seen a lot of football games, Pika. I mean, you rode around on a bus with Michael Jordan. You've done all these. I mean, I've sat at the last 20 Super Bowls with you. So any crazy Tyree catches and, weird things that happened at the end of Seattle Seahawks blown Super Bowls. We've been at all of these things. Monday night was right up there as far as dramatics and Monday Night Football and a legendary rivalry. Where do you put Monday night in the pantheon of Pikadom?
I don't know where I would rank it in there, but I would say this. This is the type of game that could only happen in 2020 with everything else that's happened. You get one of those games that, like, the entire country just sort of honed in on. And, all jokes aside about Lamar and his issues in the fourth quarter, it was a game where you had a ton of points. It was incredibly entertaining. Neither team, at one point I said it was going to come down to the end because I never felt like one team was going to pull away. The Ravens pulled away. Lamar leads the game. The Browns come back. They're incredibly talented. These were two very good football teams playing a fun game that the country got a chance to enjoy. A rare Monday night game, except for maybe Rams Chiefs a few years ago, that had everything you could want and great storylines and a lot of fun to watch. And thankfully for the Ravens, they came out on the good side.
As good as it gets, right? As we would say, right? At the end of a game, this is where you'd want it to be. And we've wanted this rivalry to be better. Maybe we don't. Maybe, it's Mark Messina came on a couple weeks ago. We talked about Eddie Van Halen, but he's like, the best thing that the Steelers and the Ravens got going is the whole state of Ohio has primarily played lousy football for the most part. I mean, the Bengals and Marvin in a couple of years with Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton notwithstanding, but this is sort of the resurrection of the Browns. We've been waiting 2 decades through Hard Knocks episodes, through 12 head coaches and 25 quarterbacks and, all these poor Cleveland folks that I have on twice a year, and Terry Pluto and Michael Regai and Daryl Ryder and Munch Bishop, all my friends out there, my poor long-suffering friend Bernard McKinney. It goes right back to Factory of Sadness pretty quickly when you lose a football game like that. Like, the memes are fun. The freezing fans, not disbelief of what they saw on Monday night. I mean, it sort of stokes the heat for like another Sunday night matchup in Baltimore next year, right?
It does. I mean, listen, it's better when your division opponents are good. The rivalry isn't as much fun when it's one way. Obviously, Cleveland's had their struggles, but you look at that football team, you look at Baker Mayfield, and he's going to be a tremendous quarterback in this league for a long time. I saw Nick Chubb play in person, University of Georgia. He's a great football player. They've got a lot of talent there, and they're going to be around for a little bit. You think about the division right now with Baker in Cleveland, with Lamar here in Baltimore, with Ben Roethlisberger obviously closer to the end of his career in Pittsburgh, and then hopefully, because I saw him play in person a few times, if Joe Burrow gets healthy again after having that bad knee injury, this division, quarterback-wise and skill position-wise, is as good as any in the National Football League. And that makes for fun times. That makes for nervous Sundays for Ravens fans and Steelers fans and Browns and Bengals fans. But it makes for great football and great storylines. And, we certainly got a great chapter in that Monday night.
Chris Pika joining us here. You can find him at Blog and Tackle. Find him at Mount St. Joe. Find him at the Baltimore Humane Society doing good deeds for dogs and cats, amongst other things, and eating Darker Brothers ice cream as well. The part of it, the behind the scenes part where Lamar's gone, you have been in that TV booth with ESPN, and you've been in that press box on the reporting side and on the other side of it. There's a lot that goes into that. I'm kind of shocked, 52 years of age, that I've never seen a musician sort of have a night where, like, they just had an upset stomach and had to run to the band, or the band could play through it, or what happened to the singer, he's gone, or hey, the guitar player's playing a lead, or hey, we need a drum solo here for 12 minutes, Neil. Whatever that has to happen. But in the framework of the game and Twitter, and I just thought he had an upset stomach. I thought he had COVID 2 weeks ago. So whatever happens in the aftermath of all of that, I'm shocked that it doesn't happen more often, but it certainly did create drama all the way around for whatever the communication was, whatever point Harbaugh realized that he was there, and obviously Trace McSorley went down at that period of time. But there's just a whole bunch of broadcast stuff, field stuff, team stuff, bathroom stuff, doctor stuff. If there really was IVs and fluids, and we take it at face value that's the story. Cramping was involved. There's a lot that goes into this in real time behind the scenes, and maybe you could provide some color on that.
Well, every team has to have a sideline PR contact, and that person is available on the sidelines for the broadcast networks to speak with, the radio networks to speak with. Obviously, this year, those reporters were up in the first row of the stands. But that PR contact on the sideline is the person who gets the information from the trainers as far as injury information, relays that to the press box. Generally, the way it goes is you relay the information from the trainer to the press box to the PR director. The PR director then lets the general manager and the owner know what the injury situation is. Then they make the announcement in the press box. At the same time, the PR contact goes over to the broadcast media there and lets them know what the injury situation is. So in a situation like last night, it looked a little bit chaotic, although it really wasn't. Obviously, Lamar leaves the field. So whoever the PR contact is, more likely, I think it was Chad Steele, and I didn't see Chad on the sidelines because of the way the TV was shooting towards their bench. But he's got to talk to Ron Medlin, the trainer, get that information, and then get that upstairs and get it to TV. And, you may not know everything at that moment because you've got to handle the sidelines. You're not back in the locker room with the quarterback. You're waiting for someone from the training staff to let you know what's going on and whether he's questionable return, doubtful to return, or he's out. And so there's a little bit of a structure to reporting those injuries in a timely fashion or a situation.
But when he goes into the locker room, there is no more update. There's just like, I just assume he had an upset stomach and he was sick, and like, and that's human. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so, I looked at it as like, oh my God, they're not going to go down like this, but maybe they're going to go down like this because this is real and it's human and it's COVID and 23 players have been sick. And, whatever happens in the aftermath of all of that in regard to dehydration or, whatever, diarrhea, whatever would make you sick that you can't perform, we've all been there. We've all been hungover too. So whatever that feeling is, that feeling of awfulness that may come in the middle of a performance or in the middle of a game, anything that would happen, but there's no communication, and then him running out like that. I think it really is the ultimate theater, right? Like, no one in the building knew this was happening, literally.
No one did. I mean, outside of the Ravens team doctors that obviously went back and gave him a very quick IV, and he may have been communicating with the trainers in the course of it. He said it started happening, I think, in the third quarter, where he started having some symptoms in his arm, and it was traveling down to his legs. So obviously the trainers were aware he had some situations. So you get from a PR standpoint, you get the best available information you can get from the training staff, and then get that relayed upstairs. So you let the general manager and the media know and the broadcast networks know, and you just go on what you've got. And then obviously you see him running back out onto the field after Trace McSorley got hurt, and that looked like a nasty injury. And
well, the turf was a mess, right?
It was a mess. And Lamar, quite honestly, didn't have the right cleats in the first half. He couldn't find his footing. He ran for a lot of yards, but he could have ran for a lot more had he had the correct cleats or the correct cleat length on.
We also had 3 missed kicks in the game, right? I mean, blocks
yep.
and it was a factor all the way around. And McSorley wound up having exactly what happened to Lamar, right? I mean, McSorley ran around for 7 plays, right?
Right. I mean, the equipment guys, listen, they're the hardest working guys at show business on the NFL field. When I did the advances, when I worked for the Saints, one of the things they would tell me to do is when I went to the stadium on Thursday or Friday was to check the grass length at the stadium. How high was it? Did they cut it short? Had they left it long? Because they've got different size cleats that they can use, and they've got them in boxes in those big equipment bins that you see behind the benches. And they'll get the wrenches out, and they'll do like a quick tire change on those and get a better or longer cleat or shorter cleat depending on the situation. Obviously, in Lamar's case, they decided just to change shoes at halftime. He had different shoes on in the second half than he did in the first half. That obviously gave him a little bit better traction on a field that, quite honestly, was getting in worse condition as the night went on and that dew settled in and the turf was loose and it just wasn't in good condition.
I was surprised how much Harbaugh knew about turf. I mean, he knew Bermuda from, he knew the names like a horticulturist.
You have to, because every place is different. And, Cleveland's like any grass stadium is going to play better in September and October when you got sunshine and warm weather, as opposed to this time of year when you could tell where they did resod between the numbers all the way down to the middle of the field. So there's been some recent resodding at that stadium, and a lot of grass fields have to go through that. That's
massive factor in the game. As much as we talk about officiating and weather and all that, we don't list field conditions, sod conditions. Every coach, every kicker, every player has to plant, move at every level. Yep. Sod condition is a huge factor in a game.
It is, and that's why I said the equipment guys are incredibly important because they're the ones with all those cleat lengths. They can sit there and unscrew those cleats. If you need longer cleats, if it's you need to get a better dig into the turf, great. But sometimes when the turf is slippery like that and it comes up off the field, there's not a lot you can do about it. And that happened a lot last night too. Besides the slipping factor that the players were having, you just had pieces of turf literally coming up like a divot after tackles, and that's not a good situation for either team, especially when you're trying to cut and you're trying to stop and do all of the movements that you need to make, especially for the guys, let's say the interior linemen. They've got to have a good hold of that turf to be able to set themselves, and you get freak injuries and things like that. And obviously, McSorley doing what happened to him, looked like a nasty injury because he couldn't keep his feet. He had a guy roll into him, so it was unfortunate.
Chris Pike is here. He is blog and tackle, and of course you can find him out on Twitter, as well as working with the National Football League, the Pro Football Writers Association, I should say, in all of our friends at Pick Hall of Fames, and do all of that stuff. Your timeline must have been a glow, right? Because literally, as you said in the beginning, there's no NBA, there's no NHL. There's no golf. There's no nothing. There's maybe a couple college basketball games here and again. But when this kind of game happens in the modern world on a Monday night, especially I would think on the West Coast where people are just banging around and holed up in their house or channel surfing or doing whatever they're doing, that it really was the kind of game where people sort of gravitated to it. I saw it along my timeline. I follow a lot of football writers, right? But like everybody who liked football, I would think the numbers are going to be way up on the game. And it's good for the Ravens brand. It's good for Baltimore positive, right? It's a good thing when the Ravens get involved in one of those knife fights on a Monday night.
It is, and it was entertaining. Like I said, you had a ton of storylines. ESPN did a great job working around it. You had 2 quarterbacks who were, Lamar had, the greatest rushing game in the history of Monday Night Football in the amount of yards. I mean, he was unstoppable. You have a game that tied the NFL record for most rushing touchdowns, okay? 9 rushing touchdowns. That just does not happen very often, and you saw a lot of that. You see a great comeback by Cleveland to force overtime, force the late, almost force overtime, and then the Ravens get an opportunity, and they win the game. And Justin Tucker, they could have called on Tucker to kick on 4th down. It would have been a 63, maybe 64-yarder, but I know he knows he thinks he can make the kick. And I'm sure John Harbaugh was thinking in the back of his mind, we need a couple extra yards. This turf is not in good condition. And so you take your chances and it was just an incredible game all around, and it had everything that you would want as a football fan, and everything the NFL wants on Monday night, a compelling game that keeps people watching well into the fourth quarter.
Minus 60,000 fans in Cleveland, right? That was certainly a missing ingredient, right? We've all sat there and look, I don't cry a river for the people of Cleveland, but there is a point where I've been on that airplane out there and back. This year, notwithstanding, the only year I didn't go. I like to visit the Leg Lamp, Chris. I got places to eat in Tremont. I got things I love about Cleveland, people I love in Cleveland. I like seeing people out there. I know my way around downtown. There's good restaurants. There's usually a show in town. The flats are nice if the weather holds up. So you miss out on all this, but all of the years I've been doing this, the team has really been a source of great angst for every person I know from Cleveland. I had Todd Schuler on from Blondell Miller Schuler and DamnGoodLawyer.com. His wife's a Browns fan. When I was out at the Emerald Tavern 25 years ago, it was the Browns backers bar. I've seen these suffering Browns fans forever. Monday would have been like a really glorious sort of thing, and I guess it was for everyone to experience it, not on that side of the fight, because I tweeted late into the night, man, they must really hate us out there, huh? Because, this is one more reason for them to really dislike us all the way around.
Well, Steve Levy, my good friend, who's been our play-by-play guy at the Bahamas Bowl all 6 years at our game, and I've gotten to know Steve very well, referenced it last night. Think about that game with a full house in Cleveland, with the stakes that game held. Cleveland, with a chance to, maybe to exercise a few demons about the Ravens in Baltimore in that situation. A full house, they would have been absolutely as loud as any place in the country, any NFL stadium. And you lose a little bit of that. There were people in the stands, but certainly not what a full house would have brought crowd noise-wise, and maybe disrupted some things. But those who were there last night witnessed the game that, look at it this way, it was a unique scoreline. We've never seen a scoreline that ended the way it did at 47-42, what they call scoregami. And, that's a lot of points on the board, by the way. That's what you want. It's almost arena football.
Anything you want to say about Vegas at the end there? You want to throw something in there? I'm not a gambling guy, but I knew what the hell happened the minute it happened, and I went, oh, my God.
All I remember was, watching ESPN and Scott Van Pelt's face when they cut over to him to go to his show. He's just looking at this going, this is like a bad beat. And the ultimate backdoor cover is a safety to end the game. And, I'm sure there were somebody in Vegas, I think, had 40,000 on the spread. It was like a late bet. And that guy's got to be sick that, the one thing you can't have happen is that, and it did.
Chris Pike is here. He is Blog and Tackle. You can follow him out on Twitter doing all things football. So moving forward here, Jacksonville, the Giants, the Bengals, very easy to say, we'll just kick all their asses. This is where I've taken a little deeper dive this week as we go into the holidays, and I order my Taharka Brothers eggnog ice cream and eat it here on the air in front of everybody. The notion that they can win a Super Bowl is different than let's all pat ourselves on the back and feel good that we had a miracle moment on a Monday night and beat the Browns, right? Like now it's what can they accomplish as comprised. No Ronnie Stanley, no Boyle. None of those guys are coming back. What can they be the weekend of January 9th and 10th? Where can they be? Where will they go? Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, I don't know. And can they win there? Because that's, at the end of the day, we're now 3 into this with Lamar and 14-2s and all the feel-goods and miracle wins and beating the snot out of the Rams and went out to Seattle last year. They've had all that. They've had COVID. And this Monday night thing feels nice. Now you can't trip over the next 3 weeks. And you better be your best self, your healthiest self on January 9th and 10th, wherever you play. Because Lamar better not have happened what happened to Trace McSorley. I don't know who their backup quarterback's going to be, right? Does Colin Kaepernick get a call? I don't know. But there's going to be a lot of stuff that goes down between now and then. They got to go win 3 football games that they're supposed to win, and there'll be no style points, but there's going to be an injury report. They better be a really healthy, well-machinated sort of machine by the time they get there if they think they're going to go win in Buffalo, Kansas City, and Pittsburgh in some sort of order, whatever that's going to be for them.
They've got to survive the next 3 games. I mean, to me, the issue that I saw against the Browns was the fact that Baker Mayfield absolutely ripped them apart in the secondary. I mean, he had a great night throwing the football. They completed a lot of passes. They got a lot of yards after the catch. The drive down the field late in the fourth quarter was tremendous. There's some real concerns for me that this defense needs to step up. You're not going to be able to score 47 every game going down the stretch. Lamar's been somewhat inconsistent. Okay, last night was 2019 Lamar. This is how the Ravens got to where they were. They have not looked like that very often. They looked like that last night, in the Monday night game. So now for the Ravens, my concern is defensively, you get a hot quarterback that has a really good game against them, and Lamar struggles. He can't get passes, or they're not running the football nearly as well as they should, and teams are shutting down the run a little bit and forcing Lamar to throw the ball a little bit more. I mean, Hollywood Brown had a drop. I mean, they had some issues with receivers. Now Brown makes a great catch on a great play that basically wins the game, and that was all well and good. But there are some real issues here that they've got to try to clean up over those final 3 games before we can even start to talk about playoff opponents and how they're going to defend
playoffs. Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Chris, for what you saw out of the Browns and them being a real 9-4 football team, are they a factor to you in I mean, I'm trying to figure out who's going to be the team that upsets Pittsburgh or Kansas City or the surging Buffalo Bills right now. And I go back to 13, and I know Luke and I talk a lot about the Flacco planking, and the Denver game and all that, and then what happened in the aftermath of that, and the drama that can happen in any given season, even when you lose 23 players to COVID and try to come back from it, that the Cleveland Browns, are they a factor? I don't know. Or any of these lesser teams? Are the Indianapolis Colts a factor? I don't know. But going into January, I'm trying to put this tournament together and figure out where the Ravens are, because beating Kansas City, I think, feels far-fetched for all of us. Beating Pittsburgh doesn't. If that's the draw, January 9th right now, you feel okay about that. If the draw is Buffalo, I don't know what version of Buffalo. We certainly saw a good version of them the other night. But I don't feel like on any given day, if the Ravens are healthy, given the complement of talent they still have, that they can't go win any of these football games. Now, whether they can win 3 in a row or not, that remains to be seen. But can they win 1 and make this thing really interesting and put themselves in a position where, hey, we weren't 14-2, but we're still playing the second week of January? That's acceptable this year. That's more than acceptable this year, honestly.
Well, every team has warts right now. I mean, I think the Ravens exposed Pittsburgh, and the Steelers are now having to defend things that the Ravens did against them. Buffalo certainly, expounded on what the Ravens did and gave them a hard time. I look at Kansas City as probably, to me, they're still the gold standard in the AFC. They are good on both sides of football. And for my money, the playoffs are matchups. Are you going to play a team that can't defend the one thing you do well more than anything else? Like
stopping the run against Derrick Henry.
Right. Okay. The Ravens got a bad matchup in that sense. Derrick Henry did the one thing the Ravens couldn't stop, was a very strong running game and a great running back. That cost them. If they get a team that they can stuff them a little bit and make life tough on a quarterback. They did not make life tough on Baker Mayfield on Monday night. Mayfield was barely touched. The Ravens had 15 on the field at one point and couldn't touch him. You got 4 extra guys out there on defense, and you still can't get to the quarterback. you've got some issues. But and then on the other side of it, you hope to draw a team that can't do it does you can defend that what they do very well. So it all depends on matchups and how that tournament goes. But the Ravens on their best night can put a lot of points on the board. The question to me is defensively, can they stop a hot quarterback? They couldn't stop Mahomes in that Monday night game. Baker gave them fits. Ben always is going to give them fits. Buffalo is sort of an interesting factor in this. Cleveland's going to be a factor. It's wide open. And so to me, yes, they could play into the second week of January and get the divisional round. Are they good enough to get to the Super Bowl with the injuries and everything else? I think that's a long way to be determined, but we still have 3 weeks of football left, and there can be injuries or other factors that come in. So, I think the best way to say it is stay tuned.
Even though I enjoyed Wednesday afternoon football, let's see, Tuesday evening football, Monday night football, no Thursday night football or Thanksgiving football for us, but I'm ready to get back to Sunday at 1 o'clock and beating up, teams like the Jaguars. We owe them a little something some special sauce from London. So I'll feel good about that, as well as some expansion. So maybe I'll chase down Tony Baselli and Jeff Lageman and chat them up, and our old buddy Sam Kavaris from the west side of town. Great to have you on, Chris. Take care. Rest up. We will send some Tarka Brothers ice cream and some Pizza John's your way for participating as well. And we'll check in again before the holidays are over here. At least we have a good news final out of Cleveland, and the season feels extended and relevant and vibrant again, right? And for Christmas, that's all we can hope for as Ravens fans, right?
That's all you can hope for. That was the closest thing to the 2019 Ravens we've seen so far, and hopefully they can take this game and the Dallas game and get on a nice run here and give us some, a great way to turn the calendar. We all want to turn the calendar to 2021 so desperately. It would be a nice way to start with the Ravens making a run towards the Super Bowl in January.
A Festivus for the rest of us. Reminder to everyone out there, and Chris is a Baltimore City resident as well, please support local. Take care of your local businesses. If you get a chance to stop by and see our friends at Amici's or at Taco Fiesta, stop by Roost Chris and Curbside. Please order those Fadley's crab cakes, those Costas crab cakes. They're one click away. You can deliver them to everyone. You can support both of our great seafood sponsors here in shipping crab cakes anywhere in the continental United States. They're shipping to Harka Brothers ice cream as well. Same discount, $15.70 anywhere east of the Mississippi, 1 and 2 day shipping. Find out all about that. You can email me anytime, nasty@WNST.net. Still finds me. Ness@BaltimorePositive.com is the new email address as well. Big appreciation to all that Chris Pika does and has done to lift the barn here at WNST.net, AM 1570, and BaltimorePositive.com.